What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I have a really exciting video for you guys. I'm basically bringing you guys along my payday routine and what I do to budget my paychecks. I've gotten quite a bit of questions on Instagram about finances in general when it comes to either purchasing a home, saving, spending, how we budget, all that good stuff. So I decided I would just bring you guys along my payday routine and what I do to budget my paycheck. It's going to be an exciting one, but before I continue, if you are new here, my name is Maria and I do a lot of lifestyle, beauty, fashion, home decor, all that good stuff. So if you're into that, go ahead and subscribe to my channel so you can stay tuned with all the other videos that I post. And I do want to make a really big disclaimer that I am not a financial expert. I don't have a degree in finance. I am not a financial advisor, nothing like that. I'm just simply sharing what has worked for me and my husband over the last few years. And since I am a full-time loan officer, I do know a lot about like your income to spending ratio and like where it should be around, and basically how to maximize your income and how to live within your means basically, but also maximize your savings. So I do have quite a bit of experience with that, but in terms of financially advising, I'm not your girl. I'm just sharing what's worked for me. My form of budgeting is not super restrictive. I'm not the kind of person that needs to know where every single dollar is going. I do believe that there is a way that you can budget but still enjoy life and not be super stressed out about it, because if I were to budget like how much dollars and to the cent of how much we're going to be spending on toilet paper this week, or something as simple as like soap, then I would stress myself out. And I feel like the reason why is because let's say soap ends up costing $2 more than what you budgeted. It would have stressed me out because I'm like, well, that's not what was in the budget, you know? But this budgeting system that I'm going to share with you guys still does keep you accountable. It's not like it's reckless budgeting where you could just like spend all your money. No, it's still a way to be accountable, but just not super restrictive. But don't get me wrong, if you need to be super strict and super restrictive because of your habits, then go for it. But personally for me, I feel like I've developed enough self-control where if I set money aside for a specific thing, I'm going to stick within the budget, and I will share with you guys why and how that works. But yeah, if you're looking for that kind of budgeting, like to the T, not your girl, because I like to have a balance. I feel like life is all about balance. You want to hold your money accountable and you want to know where it's going, but you also want to have flexibility too. So yeah, I think that's it. I'm really excited for this video. Budgeting is definitely something that I am passionate about. As you guys will see, my beautiful Excel sheet that I work so hard on. I've been using this Excel sheet for 3 years. Literally, when Eric and I got married in 2019, I created this Excel sheet and it's been what I've been using, and it's really kept me on track. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into the budgeting. This is the beautiful Excel sheet that I use to budget, and as you can see on the left side, I have week 1 because I get paid twice a week, so I budget each check. So on the left side, I will budget my first check of the month, and then on the right side, I will budget my second check of the month. And it's pretty straightforward. So the first thing that I do is I open up my phone. I check to see how much I got paid, how much was deposited, because as I mentioned, it varies. So I never know exactly how much it's going to be. So I'll open up my app to see how much I got paid, and then that kind of gives me an idea on how much money I can contribute towards personal debt, because sometimes I can do a little bit more than the minimum, a lot more than the minimum, or sometimes just the minimum. So knowing like how much I got paid kind of helps me gauge how much I'm going to be putting in each category. So the first thing that I work on is housing, which is this little section on the top left. And I like to start with this. So a huge tip for you guys that I have is dividing the expenses that you know are fixed every month into 2 checks. What I like to do is I like to divide my housing expenses between 2 checks. So for example, if my rent was $500, I would budget $250 from one check and $250 from another check. That goes for mortgage. So for our mortgage, my part of the mortgage, I divide between 2 checks. Our HOA fee, I divide between 2 checks. Even though our HOA fee, to be transparent, super affordable, $80 a month. So between Eric and I, that's $40 each. But I divide 20 for one check, 20 for another check. And I know that sounds like, girl, just pay the $40 from one check. But trust me, it adds up and it gives you that feeling of like, okay, I got some room to work with. So HOA fees divided by 2 checks. Water bill is divided between Eric and I, then between my 2 checks, like that, you know, I save half of it and the other half of my half, and so on and so forth. So that's a huge tip that I highly recommend. That's my expenses for housing. Then below housing, I'll put whatever debt I have to pay for the first half of the month, because sometimes some creditors or certain accounts, like, you don't have to pay until the end of the month. So I do it accordingly, if that makes sense. For example, if the Navy Federal card wasn't due until the end of the month, then I would budget it over on week 2, because again, that gives me flexibility. Like, I don't have to worry about it until the second end of the month. But if you're trying to really cut your balances, like cut your credit card balances, then I would recommend budgeting a little bit from each check. Little payments can really chip away to the total balance. So that's definitely like a recommendation that I would recommend. And then under debt, I have my personal expenses, or expenses like my car insurance, my phone bill. Those are kind of like my personal expenses. So I will budget for that. My phone bill is due towards the end of the month. So again, I know how much it's going to be every month. So I will budget half of it from one check and the other half from the other check. And the half that's due for that bill, I will put into a separate checking account that I cannot see. Well, I could see it, but like, I don't generally go to it because I don't want to see it. I want that checking account is specifically just for bills. It's specifically just to pay these things. So I forgot to mention that. So like, again, if my mortgage is my rent part is 500, 250 of it will go into that checking. I don't want to put it in my own personal spendings checking, like my actual debit card, because then I feel like I'll mix it up and I'll think that it's like money for me to spend, but really it's like the part of my mortgage. So that's why I put it in a completely separate checking account. Then when the bills are due, I will transfer it into my checking. But as soon as I transfer, I make the payment, because I don't want to feel like I have more money than I actually do. So that's what I do with my halves. And then under, I have an other section, because you guys know sometimes there's expenses that is not month-to-month expenses. For example, my Easy Pass, sometimes I'll use it a lot more, sometimes I don't use it at all. Also, like medical bills, like dermatology, I recently had to pay my dermatologist, or doctor bills, like, you know, things that kind of just, they throw in the mail and you were not expecting, I will put in the other part. And usually they send the bill like with enough time for a full 30 days. So again, you can divide the payment between 2 checks so you don't feel like you're taking that full hit. A really important part of my budgeting is none of my bills are on auto pay, because I feel like if I left things on auto pay, I will think that I have more money than what I'm working with, because if I don't physically see that money being put into whatever bill is due, then I will think that it's my money. Does that make sense? Like, for example, if I have $500 in my account and I forget, like, oh, tomorrow they're going to take out $150 for the sewer or whatever, then I think like I have 500, but really I have 500 minus 150. And then tomorrow I wake up like surprised, like, oh, dang it, they took out that bill. So that's why we don't keep anything on auto pay, because we like to physically make the payments and see the money going in. In order to not have things on auto pay, I definitely recommend that you have to like be on top of things, because you don't want things to be like, you know, late and you forget and things like that. So that's why like I like having the spreadsheet, because I know when I'm making payments and when they're being sent. So all that to say, the only thing I keep on auto pay are subscriptions, like my Epidemic Sounds, Adobe, Canva, Spotify, YouTube TV, all that is on auto pay because they are subscriptions. But the reason why I keep them in a section is because of this. When I move down to the bottom, right below it, I'll put my total income. So whatever I received for paycheck 1. So let's just say, as an example, my total income is $1,000. So I will put $1,000 as my total income. That's everything that came in. The total amount due, let's say everything that's due here is $200. I wish, but let's just say that my monthly expense was $200. Let's say the remaining amount is $800, right? Because I got $1,000, I'm paying $200 in all my expenses. So I have $800 left. Now, when I see my subscriptions, I'm like, okay, I have $800 left, but keep in mind, 120 of that is going to go towards subscription. So I don't technically like subtract it. I don't subtract my subscriptions from my remaining amount, because either these would have already been charged before I got my check, because some of them are charged like at the beginning of the month. I don't really like super strictly budget the subscriptions. I just have this here as a mental note. Like, okay, I may have 800 left, but 120 of that roughly is going to go to subscription. From the remaining amount, it kind of depends again on what my next check is looking like. But from the remaining amount, I usually like to put anywhere between 30% to 50% of it into savings, again, depending on how much is left. Usually, it's recommended to do 20% of your total income to savings. And here's the key, in my opinion, to savings. When you put money into savings, you need to put whatever amount you know you are not going to touch. So, for example, if I have over remaining 800 and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put 750 into savings, right? Just as an example. So let's say if I don't tithe anything, I'm left with $50 and I'm good with $50 for 2 weeks. I can do it. I'm gonna save 750. For my personal, I mean, for a lot of people's lifestyle, living off $50 for 2 weeks might not be feasible, you know, or depending on if you buy your own groceries or pay your own gas, like maybe 50 bucks for 2 weeks is not feasible because you have to keep all those other expenses in mind, right? So when you put money into savings, don't overachieve, because then, well, in my opinion, again, guys, this is just my opinion. This is what works for me. I don't like to overachieve, because if I'm realistic with what I put into savings, then I'm not going to be digging into that savings because I'm being realistic with myself. Does that make sense? So I feel like it's all about knowing yourself. So instead of putting $750 into savings, let's say you say, okay, I'm going to put $500 into savings and I'm going to keep for myself $300, $150 for groceries and $150 for whatever else comes up, right? And I always like to give myself that wiggle room. I don't, as you guys can see, I don't budget groceries. I don't budget when we're gonna go out to dinner and how many times a week we're gonna eat out. Like, I don't budget that. What I do is whatever is left over of these 300, I just have to make it work. I'm gonna figure out how to maybe cut groceries in half to $75 a week. And, you know, it kind of like gives you, it's kind of a challenge because you have to trust yourself and you have to really like, you know, be strong on, you know, only staying with 300 and putting the rest into savings. So in sum, that's really how I budget. I put all of my expenses, right, that I have to pay. I take my income, subtract my expenses, see what I'm left over with. Whatever is left over, I either put some into savings, then I tithe some, and then I'm left with X amount. I really want to encourage savings for sure. And I feel like the key to savings is being realistic with yourself. If you can only save $5 one check or $250 one check, still do that amount. Whatever, however small it is, I would highly, highly, highly recommend, because obviously over time it adds up and it gives you that discipline. Like, whatever money you're putting into savings, whether it's $2.50, whether it's $5, you're challenging yourself to not touch it. So it's like creating this like discipline within you to be a saver. And like I said, don't overachieve, because then like when you pull out of savings, it kind of hurts. It's kind of like, dang it, like that money was supposed to stay there, but I need it for this. So really know yourself, know your expenses for that first half of the month, and know how much you can save and what's feasible, and then what else is needed for like daily spending, daily living. I hope this makes sense. So before I end the video, I did want to touch on a few questions that I got over on Instagram, because I put a little like question box that I'm going to be doing a video, and if you guys have questions about budgeting, to send it over. So I did want to answer a few of them. I did answer a bit of them like throughout the video, but here is like, I wanted to do like a separate little Q&A part. So one of the questions is, how do you budget Target and Starbucks runs because your girl's addicted? That's a great question, because I'm still trying to figure it out kind of, but it kind of ties into what I was sharing about, like, however much you put into savings, that's what's for savings, and then whatever's left over, you have to kind of make a mental note. Like, okay, I only have $300 left over. I know $150 of that's going to go to groceries, or $75 is going to go to groceries. So is this Starbucks run really worth the remaining amount, or do I just want to make Starbucks at home and then use those $10, $12 to buy an eyeliner at Target or something like that? You know, like you kind of like prioritize your spending and what's really worth it, you know? So I don't like really budget like, okay, this first half of the month, I'm going to spend $20 only on Starbucks. I don't budget in that way. I kind of just see like, what wiggle room do I have to spend? And then if it's if it's within my budget, then I'll do it. Might sound like a silly question. Do you budget for a fun category? I don't really budget for specific categories like fun. I just, whatever I'm left over with, I have to make it work, and like it's what is left over, you know? But I'll definitely say that when I save, I do leave room for the fun category. So like, I know myself and I know how much I like to shop at H&M or Zara. So each check I will try to leave a little budget for that and like make a mental note like, okay, of what's left, this is how much I can spend on shopping or whatever is considered fun to me. But I don't do like a specific amount. And the reason why I do it this way is because, again, it makes me feel a little bit less restrictive, a little bit more like I'm enjoying a little bit more of life, you know, because I don't have everything like budgeted to the T. But yeah, that's sort of how I budget. It's more of like a mental note. Do you guys save weekly, bi-weekly, or on a monthly basis? And that's a great question. As you guys saw, I save bi-weekly. So I save a little bit from each check when I can, obviously, because my pay varies. And I save a little bit from each check. And I forgot to mention, but that savings goes into a completely different account. I do not keep my checking and savings together. It goes into a separate account because then I feel like it's more untouchable, you know? So keep it separate. Do you guys go 50-50 on everything? Bills, rent? Yes. Everything that is a mutual expense, mortgage, rent, fees, things like that, we split 50-50. How do you guys save money to go on trips? That's a great question. Again, one of the things that's really important about saving is knowing why you're saving. If you're just putting money away to put money away, it's going to be a lot more likely for you to dig into that money because that money doesn't have specific purpose. I feel like if you put purpose to your money, then you're gonna like be less likely to dig into it. So for example, if you know like, okay, I want to buy a house within the next year, whether it's buying a house, traveling, wedding, anything like that, like I feel like it's more motivating to save because you have a purpose for it. So try to find a purpose for your saving, whether it's like this, like saving for a trip. You know, this summer you really want to go to Mexico, so you're going to start putting away $20 each check to add up to that all-inclusive bill, you know? So we do definitely save money to go on trips, and we dig into that whenever we, you know, book. This is another question. How much money do you guys save from each check? So as you guys saw, I don't have a specific percentage. I basically just think about what are our expenses for the first half of the month? Can we afford to save this much, or should we just save this much because of X and Y expenses that are coming up or things like that? So I basically eyeball it. There's no specific fixed amount that I save. And that's only because, again, I know myself and I don't want to, when I save something, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to mess with it. So I have to be realistic with what I can save. And I feel like it puts less pressure on you. But if you have like certain like very feasible saving goals, which I can get into like in a separate video, but if you have feasible saving goals, like I want to save X amount by the end of the year, then you can calculate, okay, if I want this much by the end of the year, how much do I need to save from each check? And then you can kind of like, you know, save that from each check. The question is, how can you go out and still save? Me and hubby struggle, LOL. That is, girl, same. So this method has really helped me. I don't want my budgeting to hinder our enjoyment of life, you know? So what I would recommend is be realistic with your saving, and also definitely make sacrifices. Like, I know it's hard, but definitely make sacrifices. Like, if going out means you have to pull from savings, just think like, is it worth me having that bomb steak and spending that money versus me saving that money and knowing that it's going to get us to X place? I kind of answered all the other questions, like what saving technique do you use? How do you decide how much you would budget per month? It's a very like, I feel like it's a very realistic approach that I do because, again, I don't want, and it shouldn't be this way. Budgeting shouldn't hinder your enjoyment of life. We're all out here working hard and making our money, and you know, my mom has always taught me, work hard, enjoy your money. But that advice can be very dangerous if you don't have a budget plan. So that's why I created this, because I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to enjoy my money, but I also want to be smart and, you know, think long term and try to maximize savings. So this is really what has helped me. If you are sort of on the same boat. This is definitely not no Dave Ramsey type of teaching. I know Dave Ramsey would probably curse this video because he's probably like, you don't know where every dollar is going. That's definitely not my way of living, just because I feel like I want to enjoy life, you know, but I also want to be smart. So this is kind of what has helped me. Take my money, know where it goes for expenses, whatever I'm left over. Then I decide what I'm tithing, what I'm saving, and then how much I keep for daily expenses or a trip to Zara, you know? And this is just what has worked for me. So one more thing that I want to mention with savings is it's really good to know how much you want to save in a year. So like, give yourself a number. Say by the end of this year, I need to have this much in savings. Be realistic with your number, but also challenge yourself. And that is going to help you know how much to budget each paycheck. Yeah, that is basically, my payday routine. I'm going to get these bills paid. And then, then we're just going to live for the next 2 weeks off of whatever's left. And then so on and so forth. I hope you guys enjoyed this payday routine. I hope it was helpful. And I will link down below this spreadsheet so you can use it. You can copy it into your own Excel and use it if you are needing like a budget change or want to try this approach. I will leave the Excel sheet below so you guys can use it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.